Senator Latimer.
Thank you.
Excuse me?
No, number 9 hitter in the order, or 12, whatever number it is. Senator Flanagan, thank you very much for this forum. It's very important to have it this early. Commissioner, thank you for being here. Commissioner, as committed as you are to this path, and as convinced as you are of its rightness, I am equally convinced that we are on the wrong path, bluntly. I think we're steaming across the North Atlantic. We have reports of icebergs out there, and we're not slowing down. We're not tracking where those icebergs are. When Senator Val said we should hit the delay button, I'd hit it right now. I'm not an educator by profession. I'm a corporate executive. When I was in corporate life and we were on a wrong path, senior management, we would discuss and we would reverse course as fast as we needed to do, because profit was the most important thing, not my ego or my boss's ego or any other factor in between. And let me give you examples of what I think delay means. Delay means taking to heart what Senator Martins, what Senator Roback and Senator Lanza said. There are districts in this state that right now are producing a high level of graduation, high level of students going on to four-year institutions, high scores in SAT exams, which if there's any ultimate national exam, that's it, and who can be tracked later on to show that they're graduating college in four-year institutions and have gone on to career success. In those areas, wherever they may be, if they're in the North Shore of Long Island or in Staten Island or in Westchester County, those districts are being given added financial burdens with these changes. And we are in a tax cap world, those of us outside of New York City. That tax cap world does not give school districts the time and the energy, much less the money, to spend on other things. So in that delay, I think you need to seriously consider what Senator Martin's bill does, which creates a waiver opt-out clause for certain districts when they have shown that the metrics already are achieving that which you say, which we do agree, that the higher standards are necessary. What else do I think is necessary in the delay? Senator Addabbo raised the question about the data that we're collecting. And you indicated in your comment, that's where I wanted to go last. I wanted to listen. I wanted to hear everything you said about every question. And if I had a misinterpretation prior to today, then I could sit here and say, you know what, maybe I wasn't correct. Your response to Senator Addabbo highlighted the need for the data information at the local levels, which is exactly where we think it ought to be, where it is in some cases and not in other cases. But if, in fact, it is poor school districts that don't have the resources to collect that data, that is where the money and the energy needs to be. If we have that data collected already for certain districts, what is the necessity to raise it up in the cloud so it can be accessed statewide? How does that actually help a student in one of these districts perform better? When I heard it said by the deputy commissioner, and it's quoted in an article from the Journal News in my area, we need a data source from which we can pull to change instruction the very next day. There are 400 data points, 2 million students. Who is going to analyze this on a day-by-day basis so that little Johnny in Lindenhurst, Long Island, or little Janie in the Sweet Home District in Erie County is going to have a change in the way the education is going to be delivered day by day from centralized data? That would happen district-based and even at that school-based. So I'm not convinced that what we're collecting is necessary at the extent we have and at the level that we'll have access to. I really do believe that this is a terrible mistake we're making. And by the way, you've made a point, and I think it's accurate, that Common Core, Race to the Top, and APPR are all kind of combined together. There are federal as well as state mandates. Fine, we correct it all. Senator Ball has legislation that recognizes that Race to the Top and Common Core are embedded in each other. The correction takes correction in both. And if things that we did when we passed Race to the Top 4 years ago need to be changed, then they need to be changed. Senator Little has a bill that says we ought to provide teachers with test results, and she spoke very eloquently about it when she was here. In that delay that we're pressing the button, I think we need to look seriously about whether it's a money issue with Pearson or whether it's an issue of how best do our children figure out how to learn and build off of the mistakes they may have made on a test. And the only way you do that is with the teachers having the test and being able to help teach off of that change. And if it's a matter of course, because there's so many questions that a private company will prepare for us, then we need to discuss how were we preparing tests for hundreds of years, and now all of a sudden we have an external third-party expensive test process, and somehow those questions are infinitely better than the questions we have. Let me go further. It's been highlighted that the goal of standardized testing, in essence, is to identify deficiency. Deficiency in a student, deficiency in a teacher. Let's say the testing does that. year after year after year. What do we have to correct those deficiencies? We've seen the governor's budget, which is less than what the Board of Regents requests. We understand that even with a surplus this year and some surpluses in out years, we're not going to have unlimited money to do all the things that we need to do. Where then do we have the programs that we would need to apply for after-school programs or whatever other corrective programs that are there? I'm deeply concerned that the districts that are not producing the result that we want need assistance to do that, and it's a district-by-district, community-by-community basis. I'm sure Senator Farley would be very articulate about Schenectady and Niskayuna. They're side-by-side communities, but they're different communities with different needs. Exactly. And those different needs, I think, have to be addressed differently. Now, I've driven through Schenectady and Niskayuna, but I live in Rye, and I live next door to Port Chester, which you visited both recently. I'm deeply concerned in all of this, deeply concerned, that as elected officials, we go before our people in a world where they believe that they are the ultimate masters of decisions, that it is the voters that will decide whether I sit in this seat next year or not. And it's the voters that decide which party or which executive are going to be in charge. We're dealing with an independent agency of the government, with a Board of Regents that's selected by the legislature, but the people's voice is being raised almost unanimously. This is one of a handful of issues that I have seen no Democrat-Republican disagreement on. Disagreement by individuals, but not by party. No disagreement necessarily geographically. And yet we are going across the North Atlantic at break speed. I cannot emphasize how unhappy I am with that and how urgently I join Senator Lavelle, Senator Seward, Senator Marcelino, Senator Lanza. Hit the delay button. Hit it. I would welcome your comments.
So there's a lot there. Let me start with the point about high-performing districts. If high-performing districts are already equipping students with writing skills, problem-solving skills, and reading skills that are required for college and career readiness, they should keep doing that. That's the right kind of instruction, and they should continue. The requirement to have common state tests is a long-standing federal requirement that I agree with. Senator Robert Kennedy spoke at the time that Title I was adopted about the importance of having common metrics across the country to ensure that we have equity in our education system. We have to have a common vision for how we measure performance. And so the requirement for common state tests is, again, is a federal requirement, but the instructional choices and approaches of districts are their decision to make. On the issue of test items, we agree that the primary obstacle to releasing more test items than the 25% that we do is a matter of how we print tests in New York State. And we have a budget request on this, and I'm happy to give you more information on that, but I think that that is an achievable goal. On the issue of resources, we also agree. I am very concerned that we make sure that we have the resources that we need in our highest needs districts to serve students well, to help them meet these higher standards. I do not think we can afford, as a state or as a country, to allow our students in poverty to be left behind. And so the investment of resources that's required to ensure high-quality education in every district, I think, is critical. That's a long-standing advocacy position for not only for me, but for the Board of Regents and the State Education Department, and look forward to working with you on this year's budget to try and ensure we get closer to that goal. On the data issue, one of the things that's important to say about the 400 data elements, which is often referenced, is that those data elements can be quite specific. So in that 400 data elements, for example, are the components of an address. Each of those elements, the number, the street, town, is treated as a different data element. So it's important to say that we collect data that's required by federal and state laws and regulations. What we're trying to do with the Data Portal project is make available a portion of those data for teachers and for parents to use. Many of the districts in your district, the school districts in your district, have data portals available. But in many of our high needs districts, we do not have those data portals available, and this project is a way to make those data portals available for them. But I'm happy to talk with you further about the structure of the project and hope we can address the concerns that you and others have raised about the security issues.
Not so fast. I have Chairman